Welcome again to the Fife Milton Edgewood Chamber of Commerce, and we are again doing another candidate interview, and we're excited today to have Noah Douglas, who is running for Milton City Council. And Noah, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Yeah, and we are going to start out by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are you running? And why? How long have you lived in Milton? Just give us some good background information.
Good background. Okay. So I moved to Milton about a year ago. I came from Tacoma, where I've been a teacher for the last 5 years, a substitute teacher. So I've got to experience all of Tacoma School District and what it has to offer. I moved here with my wife and 2 daughters, Gloriana and Charlotte. My daughter Gloriana just graduated first grade and is going to Endeavor from Discovery, and then Charlotte is 3, so maybe next year for Endeavor, I guess. Discovery. Why I decided to run for City Council was because of my 2 daughters. I moved to Milton, and I saw that it's a wonderful town that has fantastic quality of life. It has all the amenities of small town life, as well as the proximity to major hubs like Tacoma and Fedgeway. And I wanted to protect that for them. And when I looked at the council, I didn't see very many people that I thought reflected me. And that's the nitty-gritty of it.
Okay, so when you say reflected you, what do you mean? So are you meaning the age, or what reflects you?
So mostly it comes down to, I've worked, like I said, my main job was as a substitute teacher, but what I've also done has been an affordable housing apartment manager for the last 6 years. And I've got a passion for representing people with no money. That's the sum of it. It's, you look at the council and you see many people that seem to have, on the outside, either retired or from a completely different socioeconomic background than myself. So I feel, as is represented in all of American politics, that people without money are not represented, and, to be blunt, don't have the time to involve themselves in politics. So I think they deserve a voice, and I want that to be me.
Okay. Or maybe don't know how to get involved, so that's great. And have you had any other opportunities to serve a public service? And if so, let us know what you've done.
So this is my first foray into elected public service. Most of my time was spent working in the nonprofit sector, where I worked in web design and web security. And so I grew passionate about connecting people from different places and furthering communication in that role, because in that role you usually have to coordinate with someone on the ground. In my case, I worked with a nonprofit called Proyecto Honduras, which was for people in dire need of medical attention in Honduras. And so you worked with people on the ground, people in the stateside, people in finance, to try and build some common messages so that they could be absorbed by the public. And that's where it all came from. That was my passion.
Okay, it sounds like interesting stuff. So what are some of the strengths that you see that the city of Milton has right now, and how do you think you can help build upon those strengths?
So I'm a firm believer in not being overwhelmed by obstacles. And Milton does have some obstacles, but I think its strength is its actually location. It is a central point to cities that are booming. We are booming, but we are taking the brunt of our thriving port. We're taking the brunt of the added traffic between Amazon jobs and Tacoma and Kent. And I think that's actually our greatest strength, that we have the opportunity to incentivize these people, not just to pass through. I believe it was mentioned somewhere they called Milton a cut-through city. But if we can slow down that cut a little bit and get them to use our services, what a boon that would be for Milton.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can see we have 5 people watching right now, but it doesn't show us who is watching. I wish that we could see who those people were, but hello for those of you who are watching. So on the flip side of that question, what are some of the areas of improvement that you see in the city, some of the things that could be improved upon?
So I love this question. So since I announced my candidacy, I have gone to every single Milton government function there, from committee, events and planning commission, events committee, parks board, everything that was listed on the city calendar I've been to. I want a quick shout out to the Milton Senior Lunch tomorrow. It's fantastic. You should come. But the common element between all of them is that there is not enough communication from the city to its citizenry. You have a local ordinance that's been developed for years by the Events and Planning Commission for vacant buildings. And this is not their fault, and this is not a failure of theirs, but they came up with a plan after months and months and maybe even years of planning that as soon as they showed it to the city basically said, what have you been doing with your time? And this is not an assortment of people that don't have busy lives and incredibly valuable skill sets. And these people felt like their time had been so wasted. And from the Parks Board, from the Events Committee, I see it across the board. There is just not enough involvement from the city councilors and city officials in these positions. I know I've seen Jamie there in the Parks Board, and he does great. I've seen the mayor show up to the planning. Let's see. I got to get these names right. Events Committee is where I see the mayor, and that's about it. And, of course, the senior lunch. I think she does a great job at that. But, yes, I'll summarize that. I think there's not enough communication between the government of Milton and its citizenry, especially its committee groups.
All right. Would you say Okay, so we're back in business here. So would you say that is the biggest issues, the communication, what you just talked about, and members of the city council and being actively involved?
Well, I feel one of the biggest the biggest stresses in a community is when people feel their concerns are not being felt or listened to at all, and especially if they feel like they may be ignored. And I'll be honest, when I think those are addressed and the citizenship feels that they are being actively listened to and that they can participate in what's going on, they can overcome anything. So yeah, I would say communication between government and citizens is the main problem Milton faces today.
All right. So moving on to economic development. There are a lot of empty spaces in Milton. What would your plan be to remedy that?
See, this is a very tricky one. I do believe those empty lots are a blight on Milton, and it's not so much inconvenient. They actually hurt the city and make it harder for citizens to get the goods they need. Milton is a food desert. There is a singular location to find food, and that is Safeway. I like Safeway, but I would like some other options. So I think what I would do, and I'll pair this back to the ordinance that was worked on by the Events and Planning Commission. They were working on a fee tagged on to empty businesses. And I'm a firm believer in you cannot punish away bad behavior. You incentivize the behaviors you want, and that will grow your community. So I would like to see more of that from a government level. I'd like to see an ordinance that says maybe if your store is occupied X number of days a year, you get something. Or maybe how I would do it, I would love more to take a page out of the Chamber of Commerce's book. I would love to see more government and private business marketing. I want to see more involvement. I want to see the government use its tools to better the businesses of Milton. And I think if we did that, we could fill up those stores very quickly.
Very good. Thank you. Traffic. So we may have mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there's a growing number of people moving into the area. Traffic is becoming worse and worse. Do you have any thoughts on traffic? What are your ideas to help alleviate traffic?
Well, I know I'm not the only one who's been trying to leave my house at 4:30 on a weekday and made the mistake of trying to go to Milton I-5 entrance and it taking an hour. So I have felt that experience before. But I will say it was slow coming. But I do believe Milton is doing a lot to remedy that situation. So we're building a roundabout down on 5th and Porter, which I think will do amazing things for that part of Tacoma. I think the method, the thinking behind that was great, and I think they could be used throughout Milton. Let's see. I think one thing, the traffic is here because there's no places to live in Milton. That's an issue. We have all these warehouses getting built or permitted and lots of jobs, but I just saw a sign go up that said starting in the low $750,000 in Milton. That is not. Wow. I'm a school teacher. I can't even come near to that. And working in affordable housing, I see people barely getting by at $900, $1,000, $1,100 a month. Like, these are substantial. And if we read through the let me get the acronym right, the GMA, in the housing section, it talks about if your rent exceeds 30% of your income, you are overpaying for rent. And Milton is substantially above that. It's like 38, 39% as the numbers show in the GM. I'm going to get it wrong every time. The GMA.
Growth Management Act.
The Growth Management Act. So the final thing I like to say, stuff is coming down, specifically to ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units, and these allow current homeowners to build, they're generically called mother-in-law units on their properties, and most of the time they're single family. They have some reductions in requirements for normal housing, but they're fantastic for new families, or single people. And I think that would do a lot for Milton's traffic if instead of passing through our city, they come home.
All right. So speaking of the Growth Management Act, what are some things that you think that you could do, or that the City of Milton could do to help the city grow according to the Growth Management Act?
See, this is a complicated question because we have available maps talking about what is actually zoned in Milton for single-family housing. So these numbers are determined. This isn't so much a citywide. It is for a small part, but much of it is federally mandated. And so you can only push that so far. We see the latest big development in Milton was this church. And the mega church in Milton is on a massive footprint of property. That property could fit upwards of 100 homes on it. That would be awesome for Milton. I would like to see something like that. I would like to see the conversion of less of these, and I have to be honest, I'm not sure what a church counts for, if it's commercial or residential zoning. I'm not sure. But I would love to see more housing, especially affordable housing. Maybe if we could tone it down from 750, if we could bring it down to 550, I'm sure many families would appreciate that.
How about apartments? How do you feel about apartments?
I mean, like I said, I've been a property manager for 6 years. I love apartments. I think they generate a lot of income from the city because you have 50-odd families paying utilities, so that's a large investment there. You have long-standing rents and taxes being paid. I would love to see apartments in the city, though, again, if we look at the Milton codes, we see many times that there is a pushback between not pushing in on older neighborhoods. I read in the GMAs that, did I get it wrong? No, I got it right. That 48% of all housing in Milton was created after 1980. That means 52% was before. So that means 52% of Milton has ordinances on the book that protect their neighborhoods from building outside of their aesthetic. But the problem is, how do you build modern construction to pre-1980s aesthetic? It makes it very difficult, and it's caused a lot of pushback.
All right, thank you. I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments and reaction about that. So what would your top agenda objective be if you were elected to City Council?
Sure. This is a question that leads a little bit into how the sausage is made. Milton has a population of about 8,300 per our last estimate. When I looked at the voter data, we have about 4,300 registered voters. And if we look at how many people actually voted, it was about 1,900. So that's actually pretty good with political involvement. That's roughly 50%. But I take it back to my communication thing. We need more people involved. We need more young people involved. We just had graduation. That means, I didn't check this number, I apologize, but how many seniors just graduated and are eligible to vote for this coming election? You should look at your political party designee, person you like, and ask yourself, do they reflect your beliefs? Do you think they represent you? So I think if I could find a way just to get one person more motivated, that would do the world for Milton.
Okay. So speaking of the business community, how do you see the city is currently interfacing with the business community, and how can that interface be improved?
So I tie this back into communication again. I see April Balsley is the chair of the events committee in Milton, and I think she does an amazing job promoting Milton business. You'll see her tweet storms go out where suddenly she'll unleash 50 tweets in a row promoting for Milton Days. And I think she does a great job, but she's not the city of Milton. I wonder why Milton doesn't do something referencing its businesses. The Flying Dutchman. Like, why isn't that place is amazing? Why doesn't Milton announce something? Flying Dutchman on City Hall. I think some government employees would love some fish and chips.
Yeah, so April used to work for the chamber. I don't know if you knew that. So that was part of her job is promoting businesses, and she did a fantastic job of promoting the businesses in Milton and Fife, Milton, and Edgewood. So that's shout out to April. We love you, April. We miss you, and we're supportive of what you're doing. So. Next question. Would you say that Milton is a business-friendly area?
I was warned by everyone before I came on that I shouldn't go negative. Negative is bad. I shouldn't say that. I can't think of a better way to say that. But I have to say no, and I can only do this through an allegory. And I tie it back to our Events and Planning Board, that they spent a year working on some legislation that penalized a business for staying empty. And I'm a firm believer that you should not tell someone in their house or in their business how they can run their house or business. And so, not saying it was their fault, but I think they were only doing the information they'd been given. And I think that's reflected with the lack of communication with the community and lack of involvement. I'd like to see less of that and more incentives.
Okay, I like that. So you have several opponents in your race. and just so you know, the people who are watching right now, we're just interviewing those who are part of the primary race. So once the primaries are over, we'll do some more interviews for the general election. But at this point, the primary race, you've got 4 different people in your race.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Hudson. We have Richard Cosner, Phil Linden, and of course me, Noah Douglas. So it is a busy race.
It is, and thinking of your opponents, have you thought about any questions you would ask them? And if so, how would you answer that same question?
So the hard question you could ask is, why do you want to run? And so I would phrase it a little differently, is say, what do you bring to the table? And I look at our current city councilors, and I see professionals, and I see long-term political activists. Susan Johnson's taken me under my wing, and she is just the nicest person in the world. And we have a common love of science fiction, which is our bonding principle. So I would ask that of my candidates, what do you bring to the table for Milton? Because that's what it's all a value proposition. It's what can you do for Milton? For me, I have two reasons. Their names are Gloriana and Charlotte. Like, I became a parent, and my life became make their world easier than my own. I was a teenager when 9/11 happened. Since I've been an adult, I don't think our nation has had a day of peacetime. And I know these are big issues, and I know that they are being dealt with, but it has to start at our local level. It starts at the bedrock, us, this local government. And I think that motivates me above the others in my race, that I have young children that their world is coming so fast and they are not prepared, and I'm struggling to prepare them. And if I don't run, I just can't live with myself.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. And I just want to remind everyone that voting day is August 6th. And make sure you mail in your ballots. Ballots will be mailed out, I believe, on the 18th. So be watching for those. And it's really important also that as you see this video, to share it. Like it, comment, and share. The more
what is the like, comment, favorite, subscribe?
There you
That's
go.
The
Like, comment, favorite, subscribe. That's right. Because the more interaction we get, the more viewers will be able to see it. So please share this as much as you can. And please join us also tomorrow afternoon, where we will be redoing our interview with Deanna Keener. We interviewed her today, and unfortunately our mic wasn't working, and we had a little issue with that in the beginning here, so we chose not to use the lavalier mic because of that. So hopefully the sound quality worked out okay with this.
That's right. Technology is the bane of us all.
Yes, it is. So join us tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 as we interview Deanna. And thank you, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.